Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your seats, because this just in, the Supreme Court has issued a report that could reshape the legal landscape surrounding former President Donald Trump. In what could be a historic move, the highest court in the land is sending a clear message, but is it a warning or a crucial turning point in Trump's ongoing battles? In today's video, we're diving deep into the latest Supreme Court report, breaking down what it means for Trump's future, the legal challenges he faces, and how this could affect not just his legacy, but the very fabric of American politics moving forward. Stay with me until the end, because the implications of this report are not just legal, they're political, and they could very well determine the course of Trump's future in the public eye. What's really going on behind the headlines? Let's find out. Opening scene. Chief Justice John Roberts' 2024 annual report on the United States Supreme Court has sparked significant controversy and criticism. The report, which traditionally serves as a reflection on the court's work and challenges over the past year, has been viewed by many as a tone-deaf attempt to defend the judiciary from mounting public discontent. Roberts, often seen as a stabilizing force in the court, has come under fire for appearing disconnected from the political and social realities that shape public opinion about the judiciary. The report fails to address some of the most pressing concerns about the court, including ethical controversies, politically charged rulings, and the erosion of public trust in its legitimacy. Instead, Roberts defends the court's independence, dismissing external criticism as a threat to the institution's integrity. In doing so, he inadvertently underscores the growing divide between the judiciary and the American people. This essay will analyze the content of Roberts' annual report, the criticisms leveled against it, and the broader implications of his approach to judicial independence in a polarized society. Hey everyone, before we dive in, let me know. What do you think of the allegations against President Donald Trump? Will Kamala Harris do better? If you think so, make sure to like and subscribe to this video for more content like this. The purpose of the annual report. The annual report of the Chief Justice has historically served as a vehicle for communicating the court's activities to both the public and the legal community. It provides an opportunity to reflect on the court's caseload, the challenges it faces, and the efforts taken to ensure the judiciary remains a functioning and impartial arm of the government. Ideally, the report should also reflect on the court's role in the broader social and political context, acknowledging its impact on American society. However, Roberts' 2024 report seems to have veered away from this traditional role. While the report acknowledges the heavy caseload and the important role the Supreme Court plays in upholding the Constitution, it offers little in the way of self-reflection or transparency about the court's actions in recent years. Instead, Roberts' focus is overwhelmingly on defending the court's independence, as if external criticism poses a greater threat to the institution than the ethical and legal challenges it is currently facing. The report's focus on self-congratulation and institutional defense has left many wondering whether it is truly reflective of the court's role in contemporary American society. The absence of any real engagement with the concerns raised by the public, such as the perception that the court is out of touch with the values of a majority of Americans, suggests a disconnect between the judiciary and the citizens it is meant to serve. In this context, the report seems less like an honest assessment and more like a public relations tool, aimed at protecting the reputation of the institution. Roberts' focus on judicial independence. A key focus of Chief Justice Roberts' report is the protection of judicial independence. He expresses deep concern over what he perceives as external dangers facing the judiciary, such as political influence, misinformation efforts, and even direct threats to the safety of justices. While these issues are certainly significant, attacks on the autonomy of the judiciary pose a grave risk. The context and manner in which Roberts presents his arguments have led many observers to suspect that he may be attempting to shift attention away from more urgent matters. Detractors contend that Roberts is leveraging these external threats as a distraction from the internal challenges that have recently beset the Supreme Court. They argue that by emphasizing the dangers posed by outside forces, he is sidestepping the critical discussions surrounding the court's own controversies and ethical dilemmas. This perception raises questions about the motivations behind his statements and whether they genuinely address the complexities. Right-wing political goals have raised concerns about the impartiality of its rulings. The decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, a landmark ruling that had protected abortion rights for nearly half a century, ignited a firestorm of protests and debates about the court's role in shaping public policy. Many saw the ruling as an overreach by an unelected body of judges, imposing its will on the country. In this light, Roberts' warnings about external threats to the court's independence appeared disingenuous. Rather than focusing on the dangers posed by political forces, critics argue that Roberts should be addressing the perception that the court itself has become a politically motivated institution. The court's independence, many believe, is in jeopardy not because of external threats, but because of its own actions, which have aligned it with particular political ideologies. The role of historical references in his report. Roberts draws on historical references to emphasize the importance of judicial independence. He mentions the 1701 Act of Settlement in England, which established judicial independence by ensuring that judges could not be removed from office by the monarch. This reference to British history is meant to highlight the importance of an independent judiciary in preserving the rule of law. While historical references can provide valuable context, their use in this report feels outdated and disconnected from the realities of the modern judicial system. Critics point out the irony of invoking the era of King George III, a time when monarchs wielded absolute power, while the court's own actions have increasingly mirrored the consolidation of power in the executive branch. For instance, the court's recent rulings that favor expansive executive power, such as the decision to grant President Donald Trump immunity in certain legal cases, seem at odds with the historical ideal of an independent judiciary, rather than reflecting the ideals of an impartial judiciary. These rulings suggest that the court is more willing to protect certain powerful political figures, regardless of the law. This disconnect between Roberts's historical references and the current reality of the court's actions only deepens the sense that the judiciary is no longer functioning as an independent body, but rather as an arm of the political establishment. The court's recent rulings and their impact on American society. One notable absence in Roberts's report is a thorough examination of the Supreme Court's recent decisions and their ramifications for American society. Notably, the report fails to address the court's controversial ruling that overturned Roe v. Wade, a decision that has emerged as one of the most pivotal and debated in contemporary American history. The omission of this landmark case is significant, as the ruling has ignited widespread protests and a notable public outcry, reflecting a growing disillusionment with the judicial system. By neglecting to mention such a politically charged ruling, Roberts seems to overlook the substantial public dissent that has followed in its wake. The decision to dismantle Roe v. Wade has not only led to protests, but has also triggered intense discussions about the legitimacy of the Supreme Court itself. Many critics argue that the report's silence on this issue indicates a disconnect from the societal implications of the court's actions. The ruling has raised questions about whether the justices, particularly those appointed by conservative administrations, genuinely represent the values and beliefs of the American populace. This lack of acknowledgement in Roberts' report may further alienate citizens who feel that their voices and concerns are being ignored by the judiciary. In essence, Roberts' report appears to treat the Supreme Court's decisions as infallible, which could exacerbate the growing divide between the judiciary and the public. By failing to engage with the contentious nature of recent rulings, particularly the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the report risks presenting a one-dimensional view of the court's role in society. This approach not only diminishes the significance of public sentiment, but also raises concerns about the court's responsiveness to the evolving values of the nation. As debates surrounding the legitimacy and accountability of the judiciary continue, the absence of critical dialogue in the report may hinder efforts to bridge the gap between the court and the American people. Ethical concerns and the Clarence Thomas scandal. Another significant issue that Roberts' report fails to address is the growing ethical controversy surrounding Justice Clarence Thomas. Over the past few years, Thomas has faced mounting criticism for his failure to disclose various gifts, luxury vacations, and other financial ties to wealthy benefactors, many of whom have business interests before the court. These revelations have raised serious concerns about the impartiality, ethical standards in judicial conduct. The allegations suggest that Justice Thomas's relationships with influential figures who have had cases pending before the court might undermine the integrity of his rulings. Despite public outcry and ongoing investigations into these matters, Roberts' report notably ignores these concerns, offering no acknowledgement of the ethical questions surrounding Justice Thomas. By failing to address the growing controversy, Roberts contributes to the perception that the court is not held accountable for its ethical lapses. This lack of transparency deepens public skepticism about the judiciary's commitment to fairness and ethical behavior. Critics argue that Roberts, by omitting any mention of Thomas's actions, is complicit in allowing the court's credibility to erode further. Instead of using the report as an opportunity to address conflicts of interest and ensure the court's ethical standards are upheld, Roberts focuses on defending the institution from external criticism. This approach risks further alienating those who already feel that the judiciary is detached from the needs and concerns of the American people, potentially undermining public trust in the court's ability to act impartially. Roberts' self-centered defense of the court. Many critics have described Roberts' annual report as a self-congratulatory defense of the court's actions. Rather than taking responsibility for the court's controversial decisions or acknowledging the need for reforms, Roberts seems more concerned with defending the institution from external criticism. His portrayal of the court as a noble institution under attack by political forces appears tone-deaf, given the public's growing skepticism about the court's legitimacy. This self-defense is particularly evident in Roberts' focus on the external threats to judicial independence, which he presents as the primary concern of the court. While threats to the judiciary's independence are indeed serious, Roberts seems to be using them as a diversion from the more pressing concerns about the court's actions and the erosion of its credibility. Critics argue that Roberts is more concerned with maintaining the image of the court as an impartial institution than with addressing the real problems that are undermining its legitimacy. Political influence and the role of the Federalist Society. Another major concern that Roberts's report fails to address is the influence of political organizations, like the Federalist Society, in shaping the court's composition. The Federalist Society, a conservative legal group, has played a significant role in the nomination of right-wing judges to the Supreme Court. Many of the court's recent rulings, particularly those that align with conservative political goals, have been seen as the product of this political influence. By ignoring the role of political organizations in shaping the court's decisions, Roberts's report misses an opportunity to confront one of the most pressing issues facing the judiciary today: the growing politicization of the court. The increasing influence of conservative interest groups raises serious concerns about the impartiality of the judiciary. Many critics argue that the court is no longer a neutral arbiter of the law, but a political body serving the interests of a particular ideological faction. The failure to address these concerns in the annual report further fuels the perception that the court is more concerned with preserving its own power and influence than with upholding the principles of justice and fairness. Final thoughts. In conclusion, Chief Justice John Roberts' 2024 annual report on the Supreme Court reveals a deep disconnect between the court and the American public. Rather than addressing the growing ethical concerns, controversial rulings, and the public's eroding trust in the judiciary, Roberts' report focuses on defending the court from external criticism. This defensive posture, coupled with a failure to engage with the real issues facing the court, suggests that Roberts is more concerned with protecting the image of the judiciary than with addressing the underlying problems that threaten its legitimacy. The court's increasing political alignment, its failure to address ethical lapses, and its disconnection from the public's concerns about its decisions are all issues that demand attention. By ignoring these issues, Roberts' report only deepens the perception that the judiciary is no longer functioning as an impartial institution, but as a political body serving the interests of the powerful. As the court continues to make decisions that have profound implications for American society, it will need to confront these issues head-on if it is to regain the public's trust and fulfill its role as an independent and impartial arbiter of justice. The Trump saga and the court's role. Well, there you have it. The Supreme Court's report isn't just another footnote in the ongoing